Hey y'all, let's talk a little bit about the unit plan information. So you'll turn this in once at the end of the semester. There are pieces to it that you're going to be working on throughout the semester, but this entire product is not until the end. And what will actually happen with that is if you decide to turn in one 10-day, you will do this once. If you decide to turn in, 10 lesson, or if you decide to do 2 5-lesson units, you'll turn this, I guess, kind of in, you'll do it 2 different times. But most of the information will be the same on the whole thing. So I'll just kind of walk through it. Obviously, grade level, all of these things are necessary in here. We're wanting you to treat this as probably a lot more detail than what you have to do in your schools, but just kind of an outline of what this unit's going to cover, any other resources that are necessary to teach it. We're not going to be per se looking at it and critiquing you on how well your resources fit. We just want to make sure that if something is in there to teach it, we have access to get to it and figure out how to teach it. Okay, so that's just the cover page. And then this is an item that you're going to be working on, this contextual information, getting you to think about the different types of students that you have. This is something that happens, it's turned in, I think, in LA 7 or 8, but it actually goes in the final product as well. So, scrolling on down through here. Desired goals. So you have to put these in here once. So if you have reading standards, because we've talked about you've got to have multiple content areas. Well, this is where you're showing us what all of those content areas are. And then basically, what kind of essential questions do you have here? Like, do you want the students to understand how skyscrapers are constructed, or any number of questions that you might frame your unit around? And then moving down through here, obviously daily objectives. You're just going to cut and paste those from your daily lesson plans, and you'll see the format for that at the very end of this file. So scrolling on down, we're going to have some time looking at assessments. Obviously, you're going to have some alternative types of assessments for your students because you're doing STEM-related projects. A lot of them may be performance tasks. Some of them may be informal. You may actually have some tests and things like that that you want to put in there as formal assessments. But this will also be done one time. My suggestion is to do these parts after you finish your daily lessons. So we're going to come back to this piece right here, okay? So let's go down here and look at the daily lessons. There's a link to the 5E Learning Cycle by Roger Bybee, and it's just a nice overview of engage, explain, explore, elaborate, and evaluate. And that's the structure we want you to put your daily lessons in. We think that works really well as just a general umbrella approach to creating these lessons because we want our students to get engaged. We want them to think about learning in a different way, and we think we're fans of this approach to teaching. That's kind of how we try to do things. So this is all here. Approaches to differentiation. This is going to be on every single one of them. It's basically what you have to do already in your classroom, but it's going to go a step beyond the equitable access plan. We want you to think about if you have students in your classroom who do better with partnered reading, who do better with different types of instructions, auditory, any of those things, that's what you're going to put in here daily, okay? So now that we've looked through that, scroll back up and look at this. So in an attempt to get you to see what's happening when things are happening, you're going to create what we call a stage 3. So possibly you will have objectives, at least 2 different content areas. You may want to include a section for standards. So maybe on Monday, you're covering standards from math and social studies, whatever that may align with. And then you're also going to put in what aspects of STEM you're covering. So maybe on Monday, you're looking at science and engineering. Well, then again, over here on Wednesday, you're doing something very similar. You have to address the delivery method or the context throughout some of these. So are you using community-based on Monday in conjunction with your science and engineering practice that you're teaching. So you're going to fill these in as you go through creating your lessons. These days are arbitrary. Okay, maybe this should actually say lesson 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's just kind of to get us an idea of what, and you a way of organizing yourself to make sure you're covering everything that you need to cover to make this a nice comprehensive unit. Now, if we go down to this equitable access plan, there's more details about this in a few minutes, but I just wanted to kind of give you an example. You're going to have to look at 4 different students and give more of a narrative about how you would teach that student based on a particular need or variation that student may require in your classroom. So we expect that every day you're going to have something in your lesson that meets the needs of a different type of student. So what I have here is an example, like on day 1, I'm meeting the needs of student 1. Well, I'm doing that again on day 2 and again on day 5. Well, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, I'm only addressing student 3 on day 2. Well, what logic do I have for that? Why might I only be doing it one day? Maybe I need to figure out a way to put in additional work for that particular student. As I said before, this is going to be done once for your 5 lesson. I keep saying 5 day. I'm sorry. All right. So then we go down here into the equitable access plan for the unit. You're going to work on this in LA5 for starting the equitable access plan table. Just wanted you to see this in advance to start, I don't know, just to get familiar and not think this was thrown at you at the last minute. Student descriptions, those are things that you're going to detail up in the contextual information that you saw earlier on. So for each of your 4 students, you may choose more than 4 if you want to, but you've got to choose at least 4. So I've given you an example here. The question that might guide my lesson design is, okay, I have a student who has never visited a construction site. How do I structure an engineering design process lesson for a student who's never visited a construction site, has never seen one, doesn't understand what any of this is? So what kind of modifications would I put in there? I might provide alternatives for that experience. There's any number of things. So I'm just going to give you in this, it's showing you just a quick, what are you doing for that student to help this happen? And then what is the context? Why might that student have never visited a construction site? Maybe they're low economic status. They don't travel a lot. These are issues that you're coming up with based on the students that you have in your class. So how might this function as community approach? So I don't know. Maybe I would bring in someone from a construction crew to talk about what is the process? What do you do? How do you do this? A community planner. Any number of people could fit into this. This is a great opportunity for you to put in your STEM professionals and think about that very broadly, but to put in your STEM professionals so that you're truly integrating that community that you live in. And then down here, context for the lesson. So how might you, I don't know, maybe you're going to use this as your engagement. I might have a live streaming of a building project. So maybe there's a video somewhere that shows the beginning to the end of construction. And that's going to help your students understand some of that process. So hopefully this makes a little bit of sense. We will talk more about it as the semester goes on, as you start working on these things. But this is just kind of to give you some level of introduction to each of these pieces. So please let us know if you have questions. And again, this is going to be posted over here under unit plan information.